Studying film? Wanting to make your own movies and video games? It can all be quite a daunting process. There is so much to think about, and now media theory is often shunned and considered useless knowledge compared to learning how to actually make the product itself. But unfortunately, you do need to know it to pass your exams, and actually it can be really helpful to understand the basics in order to create a film or video game. I am here to help you understand the ins and outs of the media industry and make the learning experience easy and more enjoyable. So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk theory. So for today's theory topic, we are going to be diving into one of the most important elements of any piece of media, the narrative. For those of you who don't know what I mean by narrative, it is defined as an account of connected events or a story, and thus begins our adventure. The narrative of a piece is what holds the entire thing together, so today we'll be focusing on two of the most basic types of narrative, linear and non-linear. Linear is pretty self-explanatory. It's a story that follows one singular line of narrative. Whereas non-linear tends to break up this simple line and put it back together in a different order. Which, now that I say it out loud, I suppose is also pretty obvious. Moving on. The best way to imagine this is to break down narrative into sections. So imagine you have a line, which is your narrative. At either end you have the letters A and B. In between those letters you have certain plot points that drive the story. The first section is your exposition and development, which is often referred to as the state of equilibrium. This is where the scene is being set, your characters are introduced, and everything is right with the world in your character's eyes. Then comes the complication, or disequilibrium. This is when something disrupts the state of norm and causes the events of the story to happen. Think about it like this. If Neo had never been contacted by Morpheus or Trinity, he would never have been pulled out of the Matrix and in turn would never have become the one and saved the human race. Sorry, hold on one second. Hello? What? What do you mean Neo isn't the one? Get out of here, film theory! Stop ruining my simple analogy! Sorry about that. Overthinkers, am I right? Anyway, after these complications, you reach the climax. Okay, laugh it up, get it out of your system, come on. Anyway, we have the climax, which is the peak moment of the story. This is where there is an attempt to restore the equilibrium, which ultimately succeeds. There is also a thing called anticlimaxes, which is where you attempt to restore the equilibrium, but it fails, but that's another video for another day. Finally, we reach the resolution and the restoration of equilibrium. This is where things get slightly more tricky. The restoration of equilibrium can mean one of two things. One, where the problem is over and everything is okay again, but something is now different. A lesson has been learned, they've suffered a consequence, etc. For example, let's use Toy Story. Oh, spoilers I guess, but come on. This film is almost as old as I am. If you haven't watched Disney's classic, then you have been seriously deprived. But by the end of Toy Story, after everything has happened, Buzz has accepted his fate as a toy and is welcomed into Andy's group of toys. Whereas at the beginning, he wasn't even there. The second meaning of restoration is more literal, where everything goes back to exactly what it was before the story started, as if it had never happened and no progress was made. This is referred to as circular narrative and is often used in genres like sitcoms. In every episode of The Simpsons, Homer can get up to whatever shenanigans he likes, because by the end of it, it all wraps up with no lessons learned, no consequences, and in the next episode, it's a new day, with no throwbacks to the previous episodes. Now let's move on to non-linear narratives. As I mentioned earlier, it's when the narrative doesn't follow the plotline we've been using so far. It likes to mix it up, keep its audiences guessing, leaving it to them to try and figure out what's going on. Wait, I have to work to understand a film? Ugh, now I remember why I hated theory. Anyway, a good example of this would be Christopher Nolan's Memento. Yes, it turns out that Christopher Nolan has actually made more films than just the greatest superhero trilogy of all time. Sorry, I'm getting really off topic now, aren't I? I just really like The Dark Knight. Memento has two sets of narratives running throughout the film, one in black and white and one in colour. These two narratives are broken up so you see a piece of one, then a piece of the second, and then back to the first. So already the narrative is pretty non-linear, but Memento takes it another step further. The coloured narrative is actually being shown to us in reverse, making it so the black and white clips start at the beginning and the coloured clips start at the end. This completely screws up the narrative, with the final clip transitioning from black and white to colour, showing the end of the first narrative and the start of the second. Wow, this just got super complicated. Tip of the old cap to you, Nolan. You did good. And you helped me explain my point. But non-linear narrative doesn't have to be overly complicated. Films like Forrest Gump have a non-linear narrative, and that's really easy to understand. Now I can hear your disbelief. Forrest Gump is a linear narrative. It follows him from when he's a child to when he's an adult. And that's true. We do see him grow up from a boy to a man. But the thing is, it's a broken story. For those of you who don't know the premise of Forrest Gump, it revolves around a man at a bus stop waiting for a bus and talking to people about how he came to be at said bus stop. So if we refer back to our narrative diagram, we're actually starting at point B. However, throughout the movie, we are actually jumping back and forth between moments of his past and him telling the story to new people at bus stop, therefore breaking up the narrative into a non-linear format. It's also a convenient way for the writers not have to show you all the boring bits that happen in between the moments we see in the film. But by far, the simplest form of non-linear narrative is visible in a film called Saving Private Ryan. At the start of the film, we see an old veteran and his family visiting the Normandy Memorial Site. Upon reaching a certain grave, the veteran breaks down and we start to hear gunshots and explosions, which leads to a flashback and then proceeds to tell us the story. All this story does, which many others also do, is starting at the end before flashing back and then playing the narrative in a linear fashion. But because the ending is at the beginning, it's technically a non-linear narrative, and so it couldn't be much simpler than that. So there you have it, the two basic narrative devices that you can use to tell a story. That wasn't hard, right? Right? Please tell me I didn't lose you. If you did, maybe you should watch this video again. And let's face it, we all know the real reason you're here is to listen to my sexy British voice. No? Did I misread that? Ugh, I can't catch a break, can I? If you did get it, congratulations! You are now on your way to becoming a successful storyteller. Only 1,000 more tricks to learn and you'll be on your way. Okay, so it's probably not 1,000, but there are a lot. Don't let that discourage you though. Soon enough, all the things shall become second nature to you and subconsciously go into your work without you even realising. My piece of advice for this episode, if you have a story, try messing up the order a bit. Try switching the end to be at the beginning, or put bits in the wrong order, or just all over the place. See if it makes your story more compelling and powerful. If it doesn't add anything, then leave it. You've tried, and that's what's important. Linear narratives are of course very successful too, but it's important to try out new things. If you thought this was helpful, give this video a like. It lets me know whether to keep making content like this, or feel free to leave a comment down below. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to talking theory with you again very soon. Ta-ta for now!